Good afternoon. My name is Lauren Williams. I'm Adult and Community Services Manager for the Columbia Public Library. Welcome to today's Lunch and Learn co-hosted by the library, the League of Women Voters of Columbia Boone County, and the Columbia branch of the American Association of University Women. Our topic is voting options for 2020, and our presenter will be Boone County Clerk Brianna Lennon. A couple of Zoom housekeeping items before we get started. If you hover over your Zoom window, you should see down at the bottom an option to chat. So if you'd like to ask a question of our presenter, you can click on that chat bubble and enter your question. Our moderator will help watch that. And then we're also recording this presentation, so it will be available the next day or two on the library's YouTube channel, as well as the League of Women's YouTube channel for later viewing. And now I'd like to introduce today's moderator, Barbara Hoppy, League of Women Voters of Columbia Boone County board member.
Thank you, Lauren. Welcome, everyone. Before I introduce our guest speaker today, I would like to introduce Linda Evans, if she's online yet, who is the president of the AAUW Columbia branch. And she will say a few words about Holly Burgess, as this is also the annual Holly Burgess Public Policy Forum. Is Linda on the line? Is Linda on?
I don't see her in the attendees list, Barbara.
Okay. So we'll come back at the end of the program if she gets online. So at this point, I want to introduce and thank Brianna Lennon, our Boone County Clerk, for making time in her very busy schedule to come and speak to us on the 2020 elections and what voters need to know. But before I do that, I wanted to say a little bit about Brianna as a background. Brianna was elected as the Boone County Clerk on November 2018 and sworn into office December 31st, 2018. And she was elected to a 4-year term, and those are midterm elections. Brianna graduated undergrad from Truman State Universities, and she also holds a master's in public policy and a law degree from the University of Missouri. Prior to her election as Boone County Clerk, Brianna served as Assistant Attorney General in the Consumer Protection Division of the Missouri Attorney General's Office before joining the Missouri Secretary of State's office under former Secretary Jason Kander. As a Deputy Director of Elections and first coordinator of the Election Integrity Unit in the Secretary of State's office, she worked closely with local officials, local election officials across the state to ensure that elections were simple, secure, and accessible for voters. She lives in Columbia with her husband, Scott, and 2 children. She is active in the local community and has served on several boards. So with that, Brianna, we look forward to learning from you and asking questions.
Thank you, and I'm going to share my screen. I really appreciate being able to present to everyone today. All right, so I want to make sure that everybody is prepared and ready for this coming election. So I just wanted to go over what voters need to know and what our options are for voting. So for this coming election, the November 3rd election, the deadline to register to vote has passed. If you are new to a county, if you've just moved to Boone County or you just moved into Callaway County, then you would have had to have registered by October 7th. And the next thing that is really going to be coming up as a deadline is next Wednesday is the last day that you can request a ballot to be mailed to you. So if you are planning to vote absentee by mail or you're planning to vote a mail-in ballot, make sure you get that request in to your county clerk's office. I'm going to assume it's Boone County, so to us by 5 p.m. on Wednesday. That does not stop the online, the in-person absentee has already started and continues on through November 2nd. So even if you do miss the mail-in deadline, that doesn't mean that you don't have any absentee options available to you. You can still come to our office, and we have a tent set up on the 9th Street entrance side so that you don't even have to come all the way into the office. We've set it up for curbside as well, so that you can still absentee vote and do that in advance of Election Day. We also have some weekend opportunities. So we have Saturday hours. We will be open on Halloween from 9 until 1. And then we also have in-person absentee locations at high schools around the county. So this coming Saturday, the 17th, we will be at Rockbridge High School from 10 a.m. until 3 p.m. And then the following October 24th, Saturday, we will be at Centralia High School from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And then on October 25th, which is a Sunday, we will be at Douglas High School from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. So hopefully one of those locations will work for you if you are planning on voting absentee. Those are all of the places where you can go. And then, of course, if you still want to vote on Election Day, we will have our polling locations open from 6 a.m. to 7 p.m. What's really different this year, and I know that the league has done really wonderful work on amplifying this messaging, is that in June of this year, there was a new law that went into effect that added an additional excuse for absentee voting. And that excuse is that you can request an absentee ballot if you are at risk for contracting or transmitting COVID-19. In that category include anyone that's over age 65, anyone in a long-term care facility, if you have asthma, a serious heart condition, diabetes, if you're immunocompromised, all of those fall within the criteria for contracting or transmitting COVID-19. And if you use that excuse, if you're voting by mail, you don't need to get that ballot notarized. That reason, and also the reason of if you are voting because you're incapacitated or confined due to an illness or injury, neither of those require notarization. And we've made that very clear on the envelope too. So if you requested a mailed ballot and you see all of the reasons on the outside of the envelope for you to choose, it explicitly says in these two categories that a notary is not required. One question we often get to is, well, I applied because I was going to be out of town, but now I'm also in an at-risk category. What do I do if my reason has changed for voting absentee? You are attesting to the reason that is on the ballot envelope. So if something has changed between the time that you've asked for the ballot to be mailed to you and the time when you're filling out the ballot, what you fill out on the ballot controls. So that also means that if you are voting and you choose the at-risk category for COVID, but then you're going to be out of town, if you choose the out-of-town excuse, you will need to have it notarized. Whichever excuse that you are putting on your ballot envelope determines whether you need to have it notarized. So even if the ballot came to you, we make sure if it's requested under COVID-19 at-risk reasons, it will say ballot does not need to be notarized. But that is only if you are still choosing the at-risk for COVID-19 category. We also, people ask, what if they have two reasons applied to them? Pick the one that applies to you, that you just need to pick one. You don't need to pick more than one. And I see in the chat that someone wanted to know about voting in person. If one of these categories for absentees applies to you, you do not need to fill out anything in advance. Just bring your identification, come to our office or come to one of our weekend locations, and we will check you in right there. You don't need to sign up in advance or fill out an application or anything. If you're going to vote in our office, it does have to be an absentee ballot. So you do have to choose a reason for voting absentee. Mail-in ballots, which is the second element of the law that went into effect, are basically no excuse ballots. You do not need to have a reason to ask for it, but there are no exceptions for notarization, and you have to mail it back. You can't take a mail-in ballot into our office, there's pending litigation about both of those things, but as the law stands right now, it still has to be notarized and it still has to be mailed back. It can't be dropped off. That may change, but for now, everything is still the same as it was before the litigation was happening. And none of that litigation affects ballots that we already have. We've had questions about, I gave back my ballot. People think that because they had a ballot mailed to them, it automatically makes it a mail-in ballot. That's not the case because of this law. So a mailed absentee ballot is treated differently than a mailed mail-in ballot. So it helps to think of mail-in ballots as no excuse ballots. If you remember that you picked a reason when you asked for the ballot, you don't have a mail-in ballot, you have a mailed absentee ballot. And somebody just asked, can you spoil these ballots on November 3rd? We can spoil them if you have them. If you're going to take them to your polling place, then a poll worker can spoil them, but it is going to add time to your visit to the polls because they need to call back to our office and we need to verify information before we can spoil that ballot. So if you've already gotten a ballot mailed to you and you know that you don't want it anymore, you can let us know that you would prefer to vote in person, and you can bring it into our office so that we can spoil it. Spoil it just means that we are voiding it. So we will write spoiled on it. We will put it in our spoiled envelope. It will make sure that it's not counted, that it's not, floating out somewhere in the world, and it voids out your request so that you are then fully free to vote in person, whether it's in person, absentee, or in person by mail. If you get your ballot in the mail and you decide, I'd really rather come to the clerk's office and put my ballot directly in the machine instead of having it mailed back, that's fine too. Come to our office with your ballot. We can spoil it right there, void out the request that you made, and then give you a ballot to vote absentee. We've put this on our website, but this is just a chart that tries to explain the differences between what absentee and mail-in is. The major differences are in the method of application because we do have an online application form if you're voting absentee that you can fill out. If you're using a touchscreen device, you can sign it right on your touchscreen. We can't do that with a mail-in request because a mail-in request has to be brought to us in person or by mail only. You can't email us in a request for a mail-in ballot. You can only email in a request for a mailed absentee ballot. And then the return of the ballots is also important because like I said, even though there's ongoing litigation, right now, mail-in ballots have to be returned by mail. And we did incorporate drop boxes by working with our local post office, where we now have a new collection box, a USPS collection box right outside of our office on the west side entrance to the Boone County Government Center. And we have a big sign on it that says ballot drop off box. And then there's also a drive up one at the Walnut Street at 5th and Walnut at that post office in Columbia that also says ballot drop box. So you can put any ballot you want, whether it's a mailed-in ballot or an absentee ballot, in one of those boxes, and it will get back to us and it will be counted. So what can you expect if you are going to go to the polling place on election day? We have instituted a large number of precautions due to COVID-19. We have plexiglass shields at the check-in station so that people have some distance between the election judge that's checking them in and voters themselves. Election judges will be wearing masks and or face shields that we've made available to them. We've hired additional poll workers to do extra disinfecting at the voting booths and high-touch areas. We've got social distancing in effect, and then voters are encouraged to wear masks. We've also, for this election, we're also getting pens so that every voter can take their pen with them so they don't have to worry about bringing their own pen or sanitizing pens between use. Everybody will just have a pen available to them that they can take home with them too. So regardless of which of the three methods, in person, by mail, or at your polling place, that you want to vote, there are still four main things that you have to do. One is make sure you're registered, and since the registration deadline has passed, it also means that you should check to make sure that your voter record has the correct address. Lots of times people move and they change their address with the post office, and they think that that applies to your voter registration record, and it doesn't. You still need to send in a change of address voter registration update to our office so that we have your correct address. So you can go on our website and you can look up your sample ballot, and you can look up your voter record and make sure that that looks correct. Sample ballots have been going out in the past few days. Most people have gotten them. The last batch hit the post office yesterday. So if you haven't gotten yours yet, you should get it in the next couple of days. We also send out email sample ballots, and those will be going out this week as well. And then come prepared. Whichever way you choose to vote, you will need to bring a form of identification. That includes a driver's license, a voter ID card, bank statement or utility bill if it has your current name and your current address, and then bring your mask. And I see in the chat there's a question about the mask ordinance. So my office is not requiring anybody to wear masks. We do have a number of polling locations that would fall within the Columbia ordinance that does require you to wear masks. And that is kind of in the purview of the poll itself. So voters are still going to be encouraged, and we will have masks available to anyone that is not wearing them. But we will not be turning anybody away for not wearing a mask. So this is what our website looks like. It's been updated. It doesn't say primary election anymore. So there's some more information on all the different forms of voting. But I just wanted to point out that the register to vote or the change my name or address, those links allow you to put through a change of address form. What's on my ballot, you can look yourself up, and that will take you to the sample ballot and polling place lookup. And then requesting your absentee ballot, you can click on that and it will take you to the form that allows you to request your absentee ballots. We also have a new voter lookup tool for polling places that if you don't want to look yourself up, or if you've moved and you just want to know, or you're helping a friend out and your friend lives somewhere in Boone County, you can look up your polling place by address instead of by person. And so that way you can see what the correct polling place is for any address in the county. And there is no deadline for changing an address. You can change your address even on election day, although again, just to make sure that you have a smooth experience at the polling place, it's better to do it in advance so that you don't have to take time out of your day to update that while you're waiting at the polling location. Getting involved, I feel like this group in particular is already extremely involved in elections. We are doing really well on getting election judges. Right now, the challenge, of course, is making sure that we have balanced poll workers at each of the locations. We do need to have representation from both Republicans and Democrats. And so making sure that we have enough of both parties to fill that role, that's what we're working on right now. And the last part I wanted to talk about, because this had kind of come up before, just to give a little overview of, and somebody just asked too, how are absentee ballots counted? So if you are requesting your absentee ballot to be mailed to you, and you're bringing it back to us or you're mailing it back to us, and this is true of mail-ins too, any kind of ballot that is mailed out and mailed back to us, those are all checked in, and then they are kept in batches in a locked up box in our vault until the Thursday before the election. So on the Thursday before the election, we start bringing election judges in, and they work in bipartisan teams of 2, and they do the last check on the envelopes. So when the envelopes come back in, if we have you marked as a received in, then there's nothing wrong there's nothing wrong with your ballot. So if we've checked you in, we've made sure that your name is on there, your signature's on there, your address is on there, and there's really no reason why it's not going to be counted. The The bipartisan election team is the arbiter of that. So if they do have questions, then those are things that we have to have answered. But our cursory look makes sure that everything is filled out. We don't want to be surprised on the Thursday before the election with people that have, missed important things on the envelope, like they haven't signed it, and then we don't have enough time to contact them. We want to make sure we're being able to contact people. So those get checked in, and the judges open the envelopes and remove the ballot from them, put the ballots in a separate pile from the envelopes themselves, and then those ballots are then kept locked up in the vault until the Tuesday of Election Day. So if you mailed in your ballot and it gets received, it gets processed on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. On Tuesday morning, we can start running all of those ballots through our high-speed tabulator. So those ballots then get counted with our election judges, and those are counted throughout the day because people can bring back their absentee ballots all the way until 7 p.m. on Election Day. So I'm going to stop screen sharing for a second just so that I can see more of the chats, because I know people are asking. So as the ballots are coming in on Election Day, we are constantly counting them because we have the election judges opening up the envelopes and then giving them to the counting room team, and the counting room team is putting them through the high-speed tabulator. So up until the August election, what we could 100% definitively always say is absentee ballots are the first returns that we always got. And that's because all of that high-speed tabulation was done by like 4 o'clock on Election Day, because we just didn't have that many mailed-in absentee ballots. And so then when 7 o'clock hit, we could upload those results into the election results tabulator machine, and that would be what our 7:30 results would be. Well, in August, we were still counting until 9 or 9:30 at night. So by that point, we'd already had election judges coming back with their polling place results. So polling place results got fed in first, but they're all still part of the same bucket of votes that are going to be counted on election night. It's not like provisional ballots, where provisional ballots are investigated and checked and all of that for the 2 weeks following the election. Absentees are always included in the unofficial results, and they always will be. It'll always be part of that process. The ones that are done in person tabulate even faster because they're already in the machines. So nobody physically touches those ballots to look at them because they've already been counted. They've already been put in the machines. So at that point, we actually have 3 of our DS200s, which are the same voting equipment you see in the polling place. One is in our office up here, one is down in the curbside voting location, and one is our travel one that we take to the different weekend locations. All 3 of those, the tabulated memory sticks that have the results of the ballots counted on them just get fed into the computer that tabulates all the results. So that goes extremely fast because we don't have to physically feed the ballots through a high-speed tabulator. So that is how the absentee process works. Let's see, there was one other question I saw. If you're in line at 7, so this actually dovetails into the timing of when the results come out. So if you're in line at 7 p.m., yes, you can vote in the election at your polling place. You have to be in the line at 7. You can't be running up to the door at 7. You have to be in the line at 7. And what our poll workers usually do is one of the poll workers goes to the end of the line. So at 7 o'clock, nobody new can be added to that line. But we are required, and we always do, stay open and still voting people until every person in that line that was there at 7 p.m. has been counted. So we make sure that everyone has that opportunity, but that also means that sometimes we get results a little bit later. If we have a poll that's open until 8 o'clock voting people, because lots of people came at 6:55 and still needed to get through the process, then those election judges are going to take longer to close down the poll and get the results back to our office. So all of those things play into when we get the ballots back and when we get the results back to our office to be added together to our election night results. With regard to the precautions at the polling place, somebody did ask, will election judges be monitoring and enforcing physical distance? So we will have signs up, and we have tape that the Secretary of State's office has given us to designate the 6 feet apart, and we give everybody measuring tape too so that they can mark that out. So that's where people will be encouraged to be standing. We are trying to make sure that we're staffed up enough to have somebody there to do not just the disinfecting, but just general kind of line management stuff. And that works out whether we have social distancing in effect or not, even previous to COVID-19. It's always nice to have a poll worker that's dedicated to line management, just to make sure for these higher turnout elections that it goes smoothly for everyone. We do have 76 polling locations for the November election. We have a few that were not able to be polling places primarily due to COVID-19, and so we have found backup locations for those. So be sure to check your sample ballot or go online and check your polling place before you go. There's not any polling places that are like big surprise new ones, because we try to stick to ones that people are already familiar with. But we do open more polling locations than, say, in August when we only had 45 locations. So we've added a bunch more locations, and we will have 2 central locations this time instead of just the 1. So the Boone County Government Center has always served as a central poll that any voter that's eligible and registered can come and vote in the Government Center. They can also do that at Mizzou Arena, and Mizzou Arena has a really nice parking availability too, so that will be very helpful, I think, for this election. The travel locations for absentee, if people are interested in doing the in-person absentee but they don't want to come to the office or they don't have time during the regular weekday, we basically set up the same thing that we have outside our office. We have a tent, and then the library has been fantastic in allowing us to use the bookmobile. So the bookmobile serves as kind of our generator power source for our voting equipment. And we have the voting equipment there and all of our ballots and all of our check-in, and our staff check-in absentee voters just like they would in the office. And people fill out their ballot and feed it into the machine, and they do in-person absentee. And we also accept dropped off absentee ballots. So if you voted by absentee and you don't want to mail it, you can bring it to one of these locations. We will check it over, make sure it's good, and then put it into our ballot box so that it can be brought back to the office, checked back in, and stored with all of the other ballots that we've received by mail. If you are, let's see, absentee, if you're selected as a poll worker and you're over age 65, will you need your ballot notarized? So that's a situation where 2 excuses apply to you. Both of them are valid excuses. So if you chose the at-risk for COVID category, that would be an accurate statement, and you could choose that one and not require it to be notarized. But if you're going to be a poll worker, more often than not, you're going to have to do some sort of training with our office, and you can always come to our office and vote absentee when you're done with your training, or if you're just coming in for other poll worker things. So we always try to make sure that we're available for poll workers to vote absentee along with our training, so that people don't have to find another time to go and vote absentee. The travel locations for absentee, those are available on Saturdays. We have them on our website. So they are always from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. This coming Saturday is at Rockbridge Senior High School. The following Saturday, the 24th, is at Centralia High School. And then the 25th, which is a Sunday, is at Douglas High School. This is another question that we have gotten a lot. If observers show up to monitor, how are the election judges going to handle that? So we do, under the law, poll watchers and poll challengers are available. They have to be nominated by the political parties. the political parties have to submit to us the names of the people that they would like to have as their challenger or observer at the polling place. And then we check to make sure that they're registered voters, because they do have requirements. They are not allowed to interfere with the voting process. They are not allowed to interfere with voters. Watchers are exactly what they sound like. They sit at the polling place and they watch. They can't do anything else. They can't talk to anybody. They can't ask questions of anybody. They just have to watch. Challengers, if they see a concern or they have a concern either about somebody's voter registration or about something happening, can bring their concern to the attention of the election supervisors at the poll or directly to our office. So they can call us and let us know if they see anything that they think is a concern, and then we can address that. But they cannot confront a voter, they can't ask a voter any kind of question about their eligibility, and they can't interfere in the voting process. There is still in effect the electioneering statute that says that you can't electioneer within 25 feet of the polling location. And that involves anything that would be considered electioneering, talking about the election or interfering with the voter process. So within that 25-foot boundary, and we always have cones out at the polling places, they're not allowed to electioneer. And then the other thing to know, because this question comes up a lot too, is that firearms are not allowed in polling locations. And that's not even an election law, that's in the firearms statutes. So firearms are not allowed within the polling place. Demonstrators or anything like that outside of poll limits, that applies the same way as people that are collecting signatures and things like that. If they are outside of that 25-foot boundary, that is the discretion of the property owner. So outside of 25 feet, it's no longer really the polling place, it's the private property of the owner of the polling location, or if it's a publicly owned building, then it's, you know, if the city owns it or if the county owns it, then it becomes that. And it does have to be it's been litigated, it does have to be non-discriminatory. They can't pick and choose who they want there, but nobody can be there or everybody can be there. That's the same for people wanting to put signs up. That's why sometimes you see polling locations with signs everywhere, and some of polling locations where there are no signs, it's because the property owner did not want signs on their property. Election judges do require training. If you're interested in working at the polling place on election day, if you are brand new, you've never worked before, we have a 3-hour-long training that walks you through everything that you would need to know. We also have a lot of online tools available now. So we've been filming a lot of our training videos to make sure those are available. All of the election judges that worked in August, they don't need to do an in-person training because they've just gone through August and nothing has really changed between the two elections. So they're going to be able to do refresher videos. We do also have our judges participate in the setting up of the polling places on the Monday before the election. So supervisors certainly have to be there to help that. We always kind of have the option for if you're an election judge but you're not a supervisor, we encourage people to go out and help with the setup because it helps familiarize yourself with what the polling place is going to look like, because you're going to get to the polling place at 4:30 in the morning, and it'll help to know what it already looks like for when you get there. So it's not always required to be a multi-day experience, but if you want to get the most out of it, being there on the Monday to help set up, being there all day Tuesday, and then the training is what's involved. And all of that is paid too. Lots of time people think that we don't compensate people, that it's just a volunteer position, but we do pay people for that. For anyone that is interested in being an election judge during absentee, I actually think we have filled all of our spots for needing absentee judges for the Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. It's a different experience because it's not just one day of 16 hours. It's ongoing work throughout those 5 days. But if you do have any interest at all, you can always email us or call and just put your name on the list if you're interested. We are still kind of sorting through. We've gotten a large number of requests, which is really great. But like I said, the balance is really important. So also don't be super offended. We will have our election judge coordinator is working many, many hours to get the training set up and to communicate with all the election judges. So don't be offended if she reaches out and says, thank you very much, we really appreciate it, but we have kind of filled the need right now, because a lot of it is about balance. So you should still hear from us. If you don't, feel free to call, but we are receiving a large number of applications, which is fantastic. We're really happy about it. We're just trying to assign people to polls now and making sure that we are good in each of those locations, because we don't want to have any lopsided bipartisan teams.
And Brianna, there was one question that hadn't been answered yet, which was, do you have an estimate of the percentage of voting absentee versus in person on the day of election?
So for the June election, we were at about 30%, almost 30% voted absentee out of the total number. So we had 11% overall turnout, but 30% of that was done absentee. For August, that was a 20% change. So we had 30% turnout, but 20% of that was absentee. At this point, I'm not exactly sure. We've had over 16,000 requests for absentees, which makes me think that we're on track to have something like 25%. And my goal had been for somewhere between 25 and 30%, because I think if the expectation, and I'm a little torn on this right now, but if the expectation is that this is truly just a proportional shift of how people are voting and not indicative of 90% turnout at the polling locations, then that will greatly help the experience on election day, because with social distancing, it's going to be challenging to, get people completely separated all of the time. And so lessening the number of people showing up on election day is really important. And I think if we hit about 30%, then we would see a pretty good chunk of that taken out. So I don't know that we'll hit 30, but I feel like we're on track to hit at least 25%.
Thanks. I think that's it. Thank you, Marilyn. And now we'll go, thank you, Brianna. We'll go to Marilyn McLeod, President of the League of Women Voters, for final thanks and some wrap-up comments.
Okay. Oh, there we are. Well, thank you all for coming and listening. Brianna had so much information. This is quite a unique election, and there is so much to learn. And we're so glad there's such great turnout. It's wonderful that you have this many poll workers already, because I know nationally there have been calls for people to asking people to serve as poll workers. So wonderful that you are doing so well. I'll mention briefly about Holly Burgess, so we don't forget that. Holly Burgess was a local business owner, a wonderful lady here in Columbia, owned the shop Pen Point, some of you may remember. And is Linda online?
She is.
Oh, okay. Go ahead, Linda. I didn't realize you were there.
We're very happy to be part of this seminar and to honor Holly Burgess in this fantastic way. You remember that she was quite active in both the League of Women Voters and in the American Association University of Women Columbia branch. In fact, she was serving as president the years that she passed. We want to recognize the importance of active participation in our government, and this is a year when we remember the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment, and when we make a commitment to vote 100% of the time. We are honoring Holly Burgess as well as all the suffragettes that have come before us. So that is our challenge, to vote 100% of the time, no excuses.
Great. Thank you so much, Linda. We were so proud to have known Holly and appreciate the opportunity to work with AAUW and the library in this endeavor, encouraging everyone to vote. Tonight at 7, another candidate forum will be held on Zoom, sponsored by the library and the league, and this one will feature the county commissioner candidates for Boone County, and we hope you will join us then. If you haven't already registered, you can register. Just takes a moment. Lauren has just put the link in the chat box. Well, thank you again for participating, and hopefully got your plan ready to vote. And thank you, Barbara Hoppy, for moderating, and Linda for sharing information about Holly, which was great, and about the fact that we have this great right to vote granted by the 19th Amendment. And thank you so much, Brianna, for everything you're doing. It's so impressive, all of the new things, the on-site registration at the different locations, the voting at Mizzou Arena. These are such great new ideas, and we're glad to have you as our county clerk. Thank you again for attending this Lunch and Learn. Have a good day.